You're listening to the Health Courage Collective podcast, episode 42, More Dangerous Than Dragons and Sword Cuts. Welcome to the Health Courage Collective podcast, the show for women who are too busy to slog through hours of generalized, inapplicable, and often contradictory health information, but too smart to ignore that a few minutes of focused attention now can prevent years of suffering in the future. I'm your host, Christina Hackett, a pharmacist who doesn't want you to live on prescriptions, a certified coach specifically trained to maximize your potential, and a compulsive learner obsessed with preventative, cutting-edge, holistic, and integrative medicine. I'm on a mission to increase your physical and mental resilience so you can fearlessly look forward to your next 40-plus limitless years. Your time is now. Let's go. Hello, welcome back to the podcast. I hope you're having a fabulous springtime week. How is your magnesium status? Do you remember the only way to know for sure? If you haven't yet had a chance to get your red blood cell level tested, have you at least tried to be mindful of getting a little more magnesium? You'll definitely run more optimally if you have enough, and most people don't. Today we're going to talk about dragons and sword cuts. We are all on a hero's journey. Sometimes we might feel more heroic than others, but whether we feel triumphant or defeated right now, we are the hero of our own story. If you like this hero's journey concept, I would highly recommend watching the documentary Finding Joe. You can find it for free on YouTube and a few other places. It features a bunch of different teachers, including my Optimize Coach teacher, Brian Johnson, talking about the philosophy of author Joseph Campbell. He taught about each of us being on the hero's journey, this fundamental path of evolving into a greater and more heroic version of ourselves via obstacles and dangerous encounters along the way. So, we're each a hero in the making. We have something important we need to accomplish, and it's not going to be easy. Sometimes we have to venture into the dark forest when we'd rather stay in the sunny meadow. Sometimes we have to fight a master swordsman or learn how to recognize a wolf in sheep's clothing. We might need to learn the secrets of the fire swamp so we can live there happily for quite some time. We can come to know that there's a popping sound preceding each flame spurt, how to recognize lightning sand, and how to defeat our own personal ROUSs. Do you know what I'm talking about? Rodents of unusual size. Frankly, I don't think they exist. Best movie ever. We might even spend years developing an immunity to iocane powder so that we can go in against a Sicilian when death is on the line. I could quote that entire movie, so I better stop now because there are so many good lines. No more rhymes now, I mean it. Anybody want a peanut? Okay, back to our journey. We can't grow into the hero we're destined to become without being in harm's way at some times. There will be darkness and fear and loneliness. When you think of these epic classical quests, you might think of sword fighting. It takes a lot of training to be strong enough and skilled enough to be ready to go up against a swordsman in battle. Sword fighting is incredibly dangerous. One well-placed deep laceration and your journey is over. Or you might think of battling dragons. That's about as threatening as it gets. They can eat you, eviscerate you, or burn you with their breath. So, what are the encounters that put you in harm's way on your journey through life? We might experience death of a loved one, loss of a job, divorce, deception, or financial devastation. What about health-wise? All of those things can, of course, affect our health, but we can also be forced to enter health battles like cancer or chronic pain, or an acute illness such as pneumonia or osteomyelitis, or an injury like a ski or car accident, or mental obstacles like anxiety and depression. These things can be major and all-consuming, at least for a while, like battling a dragon, and that's okay, even if it doesn't seem like it at the time. The hero's journey is not supposed to be easy, or you wouldn't come out of it the other side a hero, right? There are obstacles for all of us. Even Superman can be weakened or killed by kryptonite. A big enough piece of that, and he'll lose all of his superpowers. It's important to train for your hero's quest. You can't just wander around like a slack-jawed yokel and expect to be able to win a duel with a six-fingered man, best a giant from the brute squad, or storm the castle after being mostly dead all day. Preparation for the big battles is important. Being intentional is essential. Learn how to recognize a dragon's lair, practice your muscle ups, and master your swordsmanship. Train your escape from kryptonite encounters. This is an important part of your hero's journey. But is there something more perilous to your success than dragons and swords? I think there is. If we're only focused on death by dragon bite or sword cut, we can lose sight of the fact that we could also be defeated by gnat bite or paper cut. Gnats and Papercuts? Really? Yes. According to Science Focus magazine, do you know what the most dangerous animal on Earth is? As in most deadly. Maybe you know. Would you think a lion or a crocodile? Those are numbers 10 and 7. Maybe a snake or a dog? Those are numbers 3 and 4. The most deadly animal on the planet is a mosquito. 725,000 humans die every year from mosquito bites, or more accurately, from the diseases that they spread. I can pretty much guarantee that we've all had encounters with mosquitoes. They're annoying but commonplace. Some places more than others, and some with more dangerous diseases to transmit than others. And do you remember what Albert Einstein supposedly said is the 8th wonder of the world? It's compound interest. We know that investing money in an interest-yielding account will give us more money because our money earns money, and then that money earns money, turning into a beautiful snowball of aggregating and compounding gains. With a 10% interest rate, our money will double in 7.2 years. Awesome. I'm reading a book right now about the FIRE movement, you know, the financial independence, retire early thing. So compound interest is a big deal for FIRE people, and for everyone, really. And it can be so great, like retire when you're 27 and travel the world great, if you're on the right side of the equation. Einstein also supposedly, but maybe not really, said, "He who understands it earns it, he who doesn't pays it." What's so bad about being on the wrong side of compound interest? The money you owe increases, and the increase on the money you owe increases, aggregating and compounding into a crushing snowball of debt. This is how a pair of jeans bought on a credit card that you only make the minimum payment on can end up taking like 9 years to pay off and costing you $2,000 or whatever. Not good. We would never talk to a cashier and agree to a 9-year commitment of $2,000 for a pair of jeans. That's insane. Hopefully you would never make just the minimum payment on your credit card either. But you could see how that scenario would play out, right? Minimum payment this month, no big deal. And next month, and the month after. Now it's just a habit. The aggregation of marginal gains. It can be awesome, but it can also be awful. We do want to train our bodies for resilience. If we are in optimal health, we will be more likely to bounce back well from inevitable health setbacks and injuries. You will recover better from an accident or infectious disease if you're in peak physical health when it happens to you. It's an extra layer of protection. The dragon's breath won't fry you. You'll just need a reasonable amount of time to heal from your burns. We also want to avoid big, obvious chunks of kryptonite. You know better than to surrender your superpowers to cigarettes, recreational drugs, or binge drinking. It pays to take evasive action from these health-destroying evils, but many times, what's more dangerous than dragons, sword cuts, and kryptonite chunks are gnats, paper cuts, and kryptonite dust. Dangerous because they're everywhere. We're used to them. We think that they're not a big deal, just part of life. But like buying your new fanny pack collection with your credit card and then only making the minimum payment, little things aggregate and compound over time, eventually snowballing into a crushingly huge problem. Can you bleed to death by paper cut? Well, you can if you get many thousands of them. It's one of the things causing the massive hemorrhage of American money being poured out into our sick care system. Thousands of tiny nicks and scrapes to our mitochondrial function, vitamin intake, hormone functioning, toxic burden, habits, perceptions, and beliefs that add up to what we call cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, cancer, dementia, chronic pain, and so on. With a few rare exceptions like living by Chernobyl in 1986, these diseases are not caused by a singular event, one sword slice. It's decades of inflammatory oils, refined grains, poor sleep, plastics, harmful personal care products, midnight snacks, and sedentariness. It's believing that one unique molecule, patented by a pharmaceutical company, fixes your problem, or that your life circumstances make it too hard for you to be able to redesign your habits. What are your dragons, swords, and kryptonite chunks? Is there a disease that runs in your family that you're worried about? Are there already health concerns that are starting to make an appearance in your life? I know you can rise to the challenge and get stronger from training and fighting those beasts. Keep up the good work. But what about gnats and papercuts? What are yours? What is sapping your health one kryptonite dust particle at a time? What has the potential to aggregate and compound over time to lead to a life where you aren't able to make a difference in the world the way you'd like to? Could it be exposure to blue light within an hour of bedtime? Eating packaged food? So easy these days, and so bad. Is it regularly sitting for more than 20 consecutive minutes? Skipping your workouts? Not knowing what workout to do? Mouth breathing? Worrying? Soda? Pierce Steele, author of The Procrastination Equation, tells us that studies have shown that we can get another month of work out of our year, 13 months of productivity in 12 months, if we just turn off our email notifications. No visual alert, no little sound. You're 10% more efficient and effective when you don't see or hear those during your day. 10%. That's a big deal. 5 extra weeks worth of work every 52 weeks just from not allowing our attention to be diverted away for a second here and a second there, all day, every day. That's what I'm talking about with gnats. Recognizing the issue and taking one action to completely remove the entire swarm from your life, then watching your effectiveness slowly rise. Just like having something grab your attention away for 1 second seems tiny and like it couldn't possibly matter, there may be tiny health and longevity related things in your day that seem completely inconsequential. You might think they're NBD, as we say, but it's completely possible that removing them could give you extra vital years of life. Avoid paper cutting yourself here and there, and you could potentially add more years to your life, or more importantly, more life to your final years. You can and do, whether you want to or not, influence what common diseases of aging you will develop in the future. What do you think your personal kryptonite dust is? Your paper cuts or gnat bites? What are some things that you know aren't great, but also seem like not really a big deal? Could it be just a taste of something here or there? That can certainly add up. Maybe staying up for just 15 minutes longer than you planned. No big deal. Until you realize that that's 7.5 hours of restorative sleep that you're not getting the benefits from every month. Maybe it's keeping packaged food on hand, just in case. Or allowing app push notifications that pull your attention away or start the eternal mindless scroll. Whatever you've thought of, good for you. It's awesome to get some awareness. I'd invite you to pick just one. What feels easiest to be able to kick out of your hero's journey? One gnat that keeps coming around and sucking a tiny drop of your life away. What can you do to eliminate that one gnat? Forget about all the others for now. Just commit 110% to this one tiny thing. If it's a habit that's on autopilot, it will take a little effort to stay conscious and change your behavior. Imagine when it will be the most challenging to avoid and commit to doing it anyway, even in that most difficult situation. That self-mastery, even over something kryptonite dust particle small, feels awesome. You can still plan to and prepare for battling dragons, but mastering the gnats gives you power and confidence. Once you develop mastery over one tiny thing, you start naturally doing it with other things too. That's why it really doesn't matter which paper cut you choose to avoid first. Start anywhere and watch the compounding of marginal gains start to slowly roll forward, one gnat at a time, until you've conquered more gnats than the size of a dragon. Since I'm a total nerd, as you know by now, I just asked Google, and it says that the average dragon, whatever that means, would weigh about 300 pounds. Who knows? An average gnat weighs 1.5 milligrams. So if you successfully fought off 90,700 gnats, that would be the same weight as a dragon. That's only 25 gnats a day for 10 years. That's not that many. Say you eliminate one tiny bad habit that you used to do 3 times a day. That would be 10,950 times of no longer doing that behavior over the course of 10 years. Amazing. Author Stephen Kotler talks about living 4% outside of our comfort zone. I love this idea. He says that just that little 4% every day, quote, makes what's impossible become what's next for you. It's what's for breakfast, end quote. I love it. What seems impossible for you, you could make it what's next for you and have it for breakfast if you keep pushing yourself 4% every day. We can gain huge advantages by not allowing ourselves to be weakened by paper cuts and kryptonite dust all day, every day. Their insidious and seemingly insignificant nature are what make them so dangerous. They're everywhere, and they're building blocks of the common diseases of aging. But maybe more important than this is that making the effort to resist the paper cuts and gnat bites that are everywhere can also be our training to avoid sword cuts and death by dragon. We talked about The Princess Bride, which came out in 1987, so travel back 3 years to 1984 and you land on the next movie that keeps popping into my head as I'm envisioning our training. Avoid being weakened by gnats while also developing the skill and strength we need to slay a dragon by the repeated swatting or wax on, wax off motion, or painting the fence or sanding the floor or whatever Daniel-san had to do. Not only can avoiding the ravages of thousands of paper cuts be to our advantage, but using those tiny opportunities as training to build our skill and strength at sword fighting makes us even more powerful. How can a seemingly insignificant habit be an opportunity for you to get even stronger? I would love for you to think about what is diminishing your power in tiny dust particle ways and not only take back that power, but use it as fuel to grow stronger in big ways too. 4% at a time, until what's impossible becomes what's next for you. Have a dragon for breakfast, just by learning to avoid a gnat. Thank you so much for listening today and taking a few minutes to work on getting stronger so you can give more in service to the world for so many more years to come. Next week, we're going to talk about whether leaky gut is a real thing. Until then, refuse paper cuts and don't be normal. Thank you so much for tuning into the Health Courage Collective podcast. I am truly honored that you have paid me the enormous compliment of your time and attention. I would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with someone you know and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This podcast is for entertainment and information purposes only. Statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Christina Hackett and producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse events by use of information contained herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.